India has just undertaken the most significant overhaul of its goods and service tax system since its introduction in 2017. The four slab structure has been rationalized, many items of daily use have become cheaper, some luxury and sin goods have become costlier, and the government will take a revenue hit of about 48,000 crore. But here's the real question. How does this impact your pocket, India's consumption story, inflation, GDP growth, and ultimately, where should investors position themselves? In this video, I will break it all down for you in detail. Old GST versus the new simplified structure, the winners and losers, the economic rationale behind the massive shift, and the investment strategy you should consider. Hi, this is Prabhanjan Rao from Elysian Investment Advisory. We are a SEBI registered investment advisory providing curated solutions for a long-term wealth creation. Please do subscribe to this channel and find out more interesting updates and information. So what are we going to discuss today? Old GST versus new GST, what changed? The fiscal cost to the government, the macroeconomic impact, inflation and its GDP growth, what became cheaper versus costlier, sectorial winners and losers, what should be the investor's strategy, and the big picture, why this GST reform matters. Disclaimer, this video is only for educational purposes and not for an investment advice. I am a SEBI registered investment advisor, but I am not recommending any specific securities. Please evaluate your risk profile and consult a financial advisor before investing. Now let's come on to our first section, old GST versus new GST. What changed? The old system. India's GST initially had 5 slabs: 0%, 5%, 12%, 18%, and 28% plus compensation cess on sin and luxury goods. This complexity led to confusion, endless classification disputes, and higher compliance costs. For example, a roti taxed at 5% but a paratha at 18%. Why? Nobody knows. Such anomalies existed. The new system from September 22, 2025 is like this: 0% for essentials and healthcare, 5% staples, agri-equipment, personal care, 18% the new standard rate covering most items, the 40% the special rate for sin and luxury goods, such as tobacco, pan masala, sugary drinks, some luxury items, etc. Cigarettes remain at 28% plus cess until borrowings are repaid. Now, why this matters? Favor slabs always equals to favor disputes. Don't you agree? Businesses don't waste time arguing if a paratha is 5% or 18%. Compliance becomes smoother, efficiency improves, and the policy is easier to trust. A simplified GST system reduces compliance disputes and improves efficiency and significance and signals policy stability. Globally, successful GST systems like in Singapore, Canada, and Australia typically rely on 2 to 3 slabs. India has now aligned closer to that model. Now let's get on to our section 2. Fiscal cost to the government. The Revenue Secretary has estimated a 48,000 crore annual revenue loss due to these rate cuts. Sounds like a big hole, isn't it? But let's unpack it. GST collections have been very robust. India collected over 2 lakh crore monthly in 24-25. Against that base of 48,000 crore hits is around 2% of the total GST revenue. It's manageable, right? Second point, higher consumption may offset losses. As goods become cheaper, compliance improves and volumes rise. Think of it like this. Reducing tax on shampoo from 18% to 5%, the government may lose some per bottle. But if volumes double, net revenue doesn't collapse. The third point, the formalization effect. A simpler GST encourages small businesses to register and comply. Over time, this broadens the GST tax base. What is the net effect? Short-term physical pain, but medium-term demand revival and stronger tax buoyancy. Now let's move on to the third section. What is our macroeconomic impact? Inflation and GDP growth. Let's study the inflation impact. Analysts estimate that CPI inflation could fall 25%, 25 basis points to 100 basis points due to GST cuts being passed on. Daily essentials like soaps, toothpaste, ghee, butter, paratha becoming cheaper directly reduce household spending pressure. Lower inflation improves real disposable income, and especially for lower and middle income households who spend more on FMCG and essentials. What is the GDP growth impact? Private final consumption expenditure (PFCE) accounts for 60 to 63% of the India's GDP. When you cut taxes on items that touch almost every household, demand elasticity kicks in. Early estimates suggest that this could add 0.5 to 0.6 percentage points to India's GDP growth in FY26. Isn't it great? Why this matters for investors? This is the most important question. Unlike corporate tax cuts, which help profits or capital expenditure, which takes time, GST cuts on consumption have an immediate impact, demand effect. This aligns with the government's political goal of boosting consumption before elections, while also creating a medium-term growth impulse. Now, let's move on to our section 4, what became cheaper versus costlier. Cheaper or reduced GST. FMCG and daily use items like shampoos, soaps, hair oil, toothpaste, now at 5%, but earlier it was hovering between 12 and 18%. Food staples like roti, chapati, paratha, now it's 0%, it's nil. Ghee, butter, cheese, down to 5%. Healthcare. Individual health and life insurance are exempt. Life-saving drugs at nil. Consumer durables, ACs, TVs, dishwashers down from 28% to 18%. Autos and transport, small cars, bikes less than or equal to 350cc, buses, trucks and ambulances now at 18%. Building materials, cement cut from 28% to 18%. Marbles and granite at 5%. Agri inputs, tractors, drip irrigation, sprinklers at 5%. Now, let's understand what has become costlier or higher in the GST. The sin goods, the tobacco, gutka, pan masala, sugary, aerated drinks at 40%. Luxury sugar aerated drinks at 40%. Luxury personal goods, some at high-end yachts, private jets, luxury cars, etc. are at 40%. Some of the auto parts standardized at 18%, neutral, but higher for some categories. Now let's get into the section 5. What are the sectorial winners and losers? Staples and mass FMCG, lower GST on shampoos, soaps, toothpaste, etc. Rural and semi-urban demand revival. Expect volume growth in these sectors. Number 2, healthcare and insurance. GST exemption makes insurance more affordable. The penetration expands. Hospitals benefit from higher utilization. Consumer durables like ACs, TVs, and Azai appliances see price correction. Festive demand revives. Fourth is autos, entry-level cars, two-wheelers, and commercial vehicles get a boost. Building materials and housing, cement at 18% reduces construction cost, boosts housing affordability and infra momentum. Agri equipments, tractors, irrigation inputs become cheaper, which supports rural and productivity. Seventh sector, logistics. Cheaper trucks and inputs improves efficiency and margins in the logistics sector. Now, what are the losers? Sin and luxury goods. Tobacco, sugary drinks, pan masala and high-end personal vehicles face a stiff taxation. Volumes are structurally capped. States depend on sin tax. May see a near-term revenue pressure before buoyancy offsets it. Now, let's move on to the most interesting topic. What should be our investment strategy? As investors, here is the lens you should apply. Where should you be overweight? FMCG staples and discretionary durables, because it's a volume recovery story. Healthcare and insurance, because it's a structural penetration and affordability. Building materials like cement, paint, pipes linked to infra and householding. autos, especially two-wheelers, small cars and CVs. Agri and rural sector, tractors, irrigation equipments. Logistics benefit from the cheaper vehicles plus higher throughput. Where do we suggest as underweight, to be underweight or avoid? Tobacco, pan masala, sugary drinks, volumes unlikely to surprise. Luxury discretionary companies, because the tax disincentives plus limited elasticity will bring these companies down. What is the macro angle? Lower inflation plus stronger demand could also allow the RBI to adopt a dovish bias, positive for rate sensitive sectors like housing, banks and NBFCs. Now, let's move on to the another section which we will understand the macro big picture of why this GST reform matters. India has moved closer to a globally aligned three-rate GST system, improving simplicity, compliance and stability. Short-term costs is like 48,000 crore revenue hit, as I have discussed in the earlier stance. Medium-term gainer is very high, but consumption, lower inflation, stronger GDP growth, healthier formalization. For households, cheaper everyday essentials, insurance, vehicles and cement. And for investors, where are the opportunities? They have got the opportunities in the consumer, healthcare, building materials and autos. So, stock market enthusiasts, in short, this GST reform is India's double Diwali dhamaka. Relief for households, demand stimulus for the economy and sectorial opportunities for investors. The challenge will be revenue management for the states, but the direction is clear: lower, simpler and growth-oriented taxation. As investors, the message is simple, crystal clear: position yourself where India's consumption and housing stories are set to accelerate. If you like this video, do subscribe, comment and like. Have a super Elysian day.
Generate by AI.